Chrissy, here we are, many, many years later from working in banking together, and we're back together again. This time, me working in sort of a health conversation way, using my journalism background, and you having gone off and studied and practiced kinesiology for the last 10 years. And one of the tools in your toolkit is something called Buteyko Breathing, which I gather a lot of people don't know about. I certainly explain it to my friends because you've helped me and my daughter, me with my snoring, my daughter with some anxiety around about the age of 9 or 10. And so, yeah, explain what Buteyko Breathing is.
Right. So Buteyko breathing is a modality I discovered actually when we were working together in Hong Kong. It is a simple breathing technique that was discovered or developed in the 50s, the early 1950s by a Ukrainian medical doctor called Konstantin Buteyko. And he was actually doing research into hypertension at the time. And when he was studying the effect of the breath and different rates of breathing, he saw the impacts that had on the patients he was working with then, and then went on to do a lot more study with patients with breathing difficulties, most commonly asthma. And he had a tough time actually getting it past the medical, presenting it to the medical profession. He copped a lot of criticism and he was sort of shunned in a way. But he was very passionate and he was getting such good results that he persevered. But I think that's why it hasn't taken off and it's not, so well known today. But yes, I was I'd suffered asthma since I was 10 and I had a major allergic reaction to an antique quilt that I got handed down from my beautiful grandmother. It was very obviously full of dust mites and it triggered asthma in me. So by the time I was in my late 20s living in Hong Kong, I was leading a very busy, very stressful life and traveling a lot, and my asthma had become quite chronic, and I was taking a lot of medication, a lot of preventative steroid medication, and I was having about 8 to 10 puffs of Ventolin, which is the reliever medication. And I basically, I knew that this was getting worse, not better, and it was becoming more a trigger for me of worry. I would be worried if I was if I didn't have access to a Ventolin, or I'd be worried about, maybe, traveling and having enough, in enough places. I was really reliant on that medication, and it just didn't sit well with me as I was quite, open and aware of all sort of complementary medicine, and I'm not really into that way of resolving things. So I went to see a naturopath, and she actually suggested I do this course. It was 5 sessions, 90-minute sessions. And in that time, I learnt the method and then continued to practice it for about 6 months. So I would say even after 2 sessions, after 1 week of doing the exercises, I was already seeing results. I was already feeling better in myself. And I was breathing completely differently, and I was waking up less in the night, which was one of my big symptoms. I'd wake up all through the night to take my Ventolin, and that was very disturbing for my sleep and was affecting my energy levels and my productivity at work. So as my energy started to get better from sleeping better, then I found the medication, the need for the preventer or for the reliever was going down dramatically. After about a month, I was pretty much down to like 1 puff a day, or actually after a month, I think I hit 0 one day of no Ventolin, which for me was a huge turning point. And I had reduced my steroid through my doctor. I was working with my doctor, and he'd put me on a lower dose steroid, and then that gradually just reduced and reduced as I continued to practice. And after about 6 months, I was completely medication free and symptom free. So it was pretty amazing, but it was life changing for me. And I think it's sort of interesting because I guess I just went, great, that's awesome, tick, and on I go with my, my busy life. And I'm kind of, I suppose, I'm almost a bit shocked at how I wasn't more blown away by it at the time. I know that's one of my teachers said the same thing when she discovered it at a similar time in her life, and it's a bit like, gosh, that really is mind blowing, and yet I just sort of got it, did it, and then kept going. Whereas now I'm actually blown away with how life-changing it was for me. So then sort of fast forward 10 years, completely symptom free. And then I had another stressful time in my life, and I noticed I was getting a little bit minor, but a little bit symptomatic again. And I thought, oh yes, my breathing. I haven't done that for, a long time. I mean, after I'd retrained my breathing and my brain, the respiratory center in my brain, it was back to how we were, meant to breathe, which is how we all start off in life. And but then a stressful event triggered it again, and so I went looking to just find someone that I could check in with. And in that process, I met Mim Beam, who's a naturopath in Sydney, and she just happened to be bringing out an Irish guy called Patrick McEwen, and he's now the world's leading teacher, and he's doing a lot of research, and he's a practitioner as well for Buteyko, who actually went to Russia and learned from Dr. Buteyko himself before he passed away. So an amazing teacher, and the amount of research that's been done since I first learnt it is staggering, and there's a lot of clinical testing going on now, which is amazing, and it's been linked to so many different health issues, and provides such a vast array of health benefits that I think people and doctors and the medical world is now paying attention big time. So,
and to think that your grandmother's gift to you has actually moved on to be another gift that you can teach this so many years later.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to ask you at the end of this to do a guided demonstration of it for those who are watching and who have asthma or sleep apnea or snoring or some sort of anxiety. Perhaps you can just explain the links between, you mentioned that your anxiety levels lowered as your asthma decreased as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, again, that was a hindsight awareness for me that I had suffered panic attacks at that similar time, and I didn't really, when I was learning, it was very focused. It was very asthma focused, and rhinitis, sinusitis, those sorts of things. It wasn't really linked. There wasn't really much mention about anxiety, and now, of course, there's such huge epidemic of anxiety around the world and in our society today that it is now obviously very highly connected with this work. And what I'm actually noticing in my clients is that a lot of them, especially at the moment, it would seem, that have both asthma and anxiety. So and one of them, I'm working with people that I didn't know had one or the other, and then it turns out that they have both, and they're having great results in both health aspects, which is fantastic. But yes, I think what the most important and the simplest way of putting it is that when we are in overdrive, our body goes into that fight-flight response, and the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, are running through the body, and it causes a sympathetic response. So our heart rate increases. We start to feel very highly, our brain starts to go a little bit scrambled, and all those other sorts of sympathetic symptoms. So when we start to decrease our rate of breathing and breathe through our nose, which is the two key concepts of Buteyko, it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system into action, which starts to calm the body, puts the body back into a place of calm. So we start to feel our heart rate slowing, we start to feel calm overall in our body, we start to be able to have more clarity around our thoughts. You even feel like a buildup of saliva, and your eyes will start getting a little bit watery, and it's just all this physiological symptoms that the body is coming back out of that state of anxiety and adrenal overload, and starting to be able to calm itself down. So that for people suffering any kind of anxiety or depression, this has had an amazing impact for them. And indeed me, I didn't even notice, but never had a panic attack again. Haven't had one since. So it's incredible. I mean, it really is incredible. And especially when as you'll learn, how simple it really is. And you don't need to go and buy lots of tools or, and it really is, it's just a matter of practicing it. Because what we're dealing with is the neuroplasticity of our brain. So there's an area in the brain that controls our breathing. It's called the respiratory center in our brain. And basically when we are born, we're born with our mouth, breathing through our nose with our mouth closed. Our mouth is not actually designed for us to use as our main breathing vessel. That's for talking and for eating. And obviously we need to be able to get air in when we're doing both of those things. But by breathing through our mouth, the air is, it's not doesn't enter our lungs in a way that it's physiologically welcomed. So when we breathe through our nose, which is exactly what that part of our body is designed for, it's obviously filtered, and the air is warmed and moistened. So by the time it comes through the airways and hits the lungs, it's much, much easier for the body to uptake the oxygen. So what we're talking about is not getting a greater amount of oxygen, but it's actually for the body to be able to, it's called oxygenation of the cells. So the oxygens are able to be delivered to the cells and utilized and sent around the body in a much more efficient way.
It's so interesting the way that you say welcoming the air. It has a calming effect already, and the filtering that our nose does.
Well, I think if anyone ever had any kind of anxiety attack or an asthma attack, it's that desperate kind of, you're gasping, you're desperately trying to get something, and even it's coming in, it doesn't feel like it's working. And so then you go into that more panicked state. And I think it's, when you're having an asthma attack, you certainly do trigger the sympathetic nerve. You're really going to panic because you cannot get the air in, and you struggle more and more and more, and your shoulders go up, and you're breathing more and more into your upper chest, and it's just not getting down into the beautiful parts of the lungs that need it. So it is kind of the two go, very closely together for me, from my experience, and from the clients that I'm working with as well say the same thing. So,
and you've also, without sounding alarmist here, for parents who've got children who sleep with their mouths open, they have to beware, right?
Yeah, so I think this is a big thing, and it's actually now I'm learning of a lot of dentists that are undertaking and noticing, because there's the effects for, without looking beyond anxiety and asthma and sinusitis and rhinitis, there's a lot of myofascial developmental issues with children who are breathing through their mouth. So I know my daughter is a chronic mouth breather. She has had she had an asthma attack at some point, and it seemed to have triggered that. I didn't notice it before then. So she was about 12 when that happened, and has become a chronic mouth breather, and has had some quite major, dental issues since. So with young children who, dentists are now advising parents with children who are breathing through their mouth to actually tape their children's mouth whilst they sleep, which sounds very scary to a parent, I understand. And it's the same, that is part of the Buteyko technique that we work with everybody as well. So once you get used to it, because it's basically, as I said, you're retraining that part of the brain to go back to how it innately started breathing when we were born. So, and a lot of dentists are advising it because it avoids, a lot of issues down the track, whether it's asthma or whether it's just, myofascial development. The actual development of the jaw and the facial structure can be very different. And there's some quite well known. If you Google mouth breather, you'll see all sorts of images online. And actually, the definition that comes up if you Google mouth breather is stupid person, which sounds hilarious, but it's sort of what you look like when the muscle, definition, because you use very different muscles when you breathe through your mouth compared to your nose, and so the muscle atrophy, and that can change the whole palate of, without the tongue resting on the roof of the mouth, the whole palate is not naturally forming, so it collapses, and then all the muscles, so you tend to see people with not very much definition in their neck and chin. And the people are, they have this sort of long in the mouth, and they do. And if you think about films where there's a fool or a villain, someone like that, they always have a character that has their mouth open, has that kind of face, shape. It kind of sounds
that
crazy,
makes sense.
but once you start noticing that, you'll see it, and you'll just be like, oh my gosh, yes. And then a lot of elderly people, it quite upsets me seeing people walking around and they're mouth hanging, they're gasping for air, but you can just see it's just really not very vibrant.
And a lot of them are having bad night sleeps. They've got the sleep apnea going on.
Absolutely.
I slept next to my late husband, who used to hold his breath I used to count for up to 18 seconds, and when he had himself checked, when they, put the nodes all over him and did the recording one night, his brain was being woken by sleep apnea, by that lack of oxygen, every 12 minutes. So anybody who's sleeping next to somebody who you hear them hold their breath and then you see them release and they go, that's sleep apnea. And obviously Buteyko Breathing can fix that without having to have all that machinery that you sleep with.
I know, that's true. It's true. Yes, it's not very sexy.
Right. Well, let's get into it, and why don't you guide me and our viewers through a quick session of Buteyko Breathing.
Okay, well, just to explain the theory, the method is really very simple. The primary thing is to keep our mouth shut and to breathe through our nose. So that is basically what we're doing. Depending on your symptoms, depending on what's going on for you, that will be, various levels of challenging. I've got clients who it really is just to close their mouth and breathe through their nose is that takes up 2 sessions, because that's they're so, maybe they've got nasal congestion, and we start with that, because that's the problem is when we breathe through our mouth and the air's not going through our nose, it becomes more easily blocked. So if we're breathing through our nose, it's physiologically impossible to have a blocked nose if you
use it or lose it.
So the problem that I have, that's right. And so but people say, I can't breathe through my nose because it's blocked. So we do have a method of unblocking the nose, which we would teach people. But for now, we just concentrate on basically making sure you're in a relaxed posture, that your posture is nice and straight, that your shoulders are relaxed, and most importantly, that your diaphragm is relaxed. So I'm just going to change my camera down here so you can see me. And what we do for people to just be identifying how we breathe into our belly is to put one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. So a lot of people with asthma and anxiety, you'll notice they're breathing very much into their upper chest and their shoulders are raised, and they're using all their neck, all the muscles in their neck and shoulders. And a lot of those people have a lot of neck and shoulder issues, actually, because it's just extra energy to get that breath in. But actually, if we just relax all those muscles, relax our shoulders, and really feel our belly softening, and then we shut our mouth, and we want your tongue to be on just softly across the top in the roof of your mouth. That's the best position for keeping the airways open. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a gentle breath in through your nose and making sure you feel that the hand on your belly is expanding. So here we go. So gentle breath in through the nose with your mouth closed. And you want to see that there's really hardly any movement in your upper chest or your shoulders. And you just want to keep your mouth closed. And then take another gentle breath in. Feeling your belly expand, feeling your diaphragm really relaxing. That's the big breathing muscle underneath your lungs, underneath your rib cage. And exhale. And then just take another gentle breath in. Keeping your shoulders relaxed and out. So now you've got the hang of the belly breathing. We're going to actually do a breath hold. And this is part of the method, is to eventually build up your breath holds to be longer and longer and longer. So as you do that, obviously your body is it's raising the levels of carbon dioxide. So I know everyone's very concerned with oxygen levels when we talk about breathing, but in Buteyko we're very focused on carbon dioxide levels coming up, which is what's triggering the parasympathetic nervous system to respond in that calming way. Also, what's happening when we're doing breath holds, just keep doing some nice gentle belly breathing while I'm talking. In and out through the nose, keeping your mouth shut and your tongue relaxed on the roof of your mouth, shoulders relaxed. When we hold our breath, a substance called nitric oxide is being produced. It's produced in other areas of the body, but the primary area is in the nose. And what happens when we hold our breath, it pools, it gathers, collects in our nasal cavity. And so when we always do a breath hold after an exhale, so that the first breath is an inhale, when we can take that nitric oxide and it goes straight to the airways. And the purpose of the nitric oxide is to relax and open the airways. The airways is, is lined with a smooth muscle. So that's what it's able to, and that's why it contracts. When it contracts, we're blocking the airway. But when we have the nitric oxide in our system, it's able to open up, and it's relaxing it so that the air can actually get in, and then the oxygen can go right down to the alveoli, which are the little branches at the end of the breathing tubes, the bronchioles, and that's what takes it and takes the oxygen around the body. So that's basically what we're doing, and we're going to do what we call now is a small breath hold. So it's only going to be for 3 seconds. We're going to start in case some people have quite severe symptoms, and we're just going to do a small inhale, a small exhale, and then we're going to block our nose whilst keeping our mouth shut, block our nose and hold it, and I'm going to count down from 3. And then obviously the important thing is to take that first breath in through your nose, so keeping your mouth shut. And then we're going to, once we let go and breathe, you want to get control of your breathing as calmly as possible. So you don't want to, if it's too strong and you're to get back on top of your breath, that's too strong. So maybe you just only hold it for 2 seconds, whatever level you are. But the biggest thing is to get control over your breathing in the calmest way without sort of engaging your chest and your shoulders and all the neck muscles. So we're going to do a demo now. So we're going to start with making sure our mouth is closed, the tongue is relaxed on the roof of the mouth, your shoulders and diaphragm are relaxed. Hand on the belly, you're going to do a nice gentle inhale through the nose and out through the nose. And then hold your nose for 3, 2, 1, and inhale through your nose while keeping your mouth shut. And then try and keep your shoulders relaxed and your belly relaxed as you get that breath under control. Did you feel, was that challenging
at all?
No,
that was good for me. Yeah, perfect.
Good. Yeah. Okay, good. Your shoulders are not moving at all, which is excellent. Okay, we're going to do another one now. So gentle breath in, gentle breath out, and hold your nose for 3, 2, 1. And inhale through your nose and just get control over your breathing and keeping your belly relaxed and your shoulders relaxed, keeping your mouth closed and the tongue on the roof of your mouth. And you might now start to feel some calmness coming into your body. You might now start to feel some saliva pooling in your mouth, your eyes getting a little bit glassy, your heart rate slowing down, and that's a really good sign that the parasympathetic nervous system is in action. Okay, let's do another one. So gentle breath in through the nose, out through the nose, and hold the nose for 3, 2, 1. And then inhale through the nose. And getting your breath under control, keeping your mouth closed and everything relaxed, keeping your posture nice and straight. Good job.
Salivating.
Good job, Kate.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Amazing. And so we would continue that for 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the symptoms and depending on where you're at. So that's just one of the exercises. There's about 6 different exercises, and depending on the person's symptoms, we would prescribe different exercise combinations for that. So whether they've got asthma or anxiety versus, a digestive issue, because obviously, the digestive tract is also smooth muscle, so it's going to have a great effect on anyone that's suffering from any digestive issues like constipation. I know a lot of people take magnesium, which is also helpful for relaxing those muscles, but this is a really great way of helping those muscles to open up and relax and be able to move things through.
Great. And the best thing about this is that you can do it online.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm doing my first online course in the next couple of months. I'll be letting you know the date as soon as we get that booked in, but we'll be able to offer a really good price for your listeners. And I'm really excited about doing that because obviously it can reach more people. And I just think it's amazing, like when we look at the vast array of things that this can help with. I mean, that's just a short list.
Oh, it's tiny.
So, it's just amazing how many different things, from skin issues to obviously all the teeth, like people that yawn. I mean, yawning is a symptom of dysfunctional breathing, and that's embarrassing for people when they're in a meeting and they can't stop yawning.
I've done it.
People that sigh often, and it sounds like they're exasperated, and it's just it's another sign that the sympathetic nervous system is in override. But headaches, memory, any kind of sometimes pins and needles, people are getting it, like circulation, general fatigue, insomnia, it goes on and on and on. But
it's amazing. And I know that this
It
is,
seems
sorry,
to
go
be.
on.
No,
No, I'm
it's
just going to
ready.
say it's fantastic what you're doing here. And I know that it's one of many things that you do as a practicing kinesiologist, but hopefully this is going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives, and very easily and very quickly, because they can do it on their own, they can do it online with you. And thank you so much for explaining it in such a easy to understand way, and also for helping me and my daughter. I can't thank you enough. And I have to say that
I just think
having
it is. It's such
yeah,
a
and
great
having
thing.
sat opposite you and watched you go from somebody who needed an asthma pump, Ventolin, delivered to the next location that you were flying to because you'd forgotten it and you were worried you were going to have a panic attack on the plane, to somebody who a month later had no asthma. I just think that it's a no-brainer. So thank you so much for coming on and explaining everything so beautifully.
That's my pleasure, and thank you for having this conversation with me.
Bye.